Welcome back to another episode of Motivate with Coach Camp. I, of course, am your host, Coach Camp, and we are down here in the fantastic, amazing, stupendous studios of SRP with Mr. Derek Michaud. All right, hey, settle in. This week's guest is somebody very special. I'm honored enough that he reached out to me. He had come across some of the motivational content that I put out there and expressed some of his story to me. And whenever I looked into it, I was like, wow, this guy's amazing. I'm not worthy, but he wanted to come on. He wanted to share his story today. And I know this is going to it's going to actually speak to so many folks, but then there is an entire sports network out there that's going to need to hear what he has to say. My guest this week is Mr. George Visger. And correct me if I said your name wrong, sir. I am in Mississippi. He is a longtime football player. He played for the San Francisco 49ers. He was on the 81 team that won the Super Bowl in January of 82, obviously. And he played for the Colorado Buffalo college team and then played out in California, and that's where he's from. And his story today is about some football, but it's also about persevering and overcoming great adversity. CTE is going to be the center point of our conversation today, and that is chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Easy for me to say. I'm down here in Mississippi, like I said, but I know you guys are going to love this story. So buckle up, sit down, get you something to drink and eat, and let's tune in. Welcome, Mr. George.
Good to have. Thanks for having me on here.
Absolutely. Did I say your last name right?
You did. Visger.
Good. Yeah. I've not been known to pronounce names sometimes, unless it's Bob or Janet. And I got you down.
I'm good with single syllable words too.
So let's talk about just a little bit real quick, George, about where did you grow up? Where are you from?
Okay. I grew up in Stockton, California, Northern Cal. It was agricultural area. And I'm the fifth of six kids.
Oh, wow.
My dad grew up in Michigan, Lansing, Michigan. Big, tall kid, 6'6", great basketball player in high school. Had been offered a $1,200 contract by the Philadelphia Knicks in high school in 1941. Wow. And he worked on these big ore ships that went over to Canada when he was in high school and brought ore back to the U.S. When the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, 17 years old, lied about his age, enlisted in the Navy. He was on LST 751, Atlantic Ship Transport, fought in all the major campaigns in the South Pacific. His ship was decommissioned at Treasure Island, the Bay Area, off of San Francisco. And he met my mom, who was from Stockton. She was pouring sodas at a USO dance, and little bitty 5'3" Rita Rishwain and a big 6'6" Jack Visger. They ended up getting married. He never finished high school. He drove a beer truck, raised six of us kids in 1,000 square foot, 2-bedroom, 1 bath, 0 air conditioned home in Stockton, California.
Holy.
It'll hit 112, 114 every summer. And when I was very young, I'm in the fifth to sixth, they converted the garage, the 1-car garage, into the boys' room. And my 2 older brothers slept out there. That was our bedroom. And both my older brothers went on to play college football. And so my dream was, one, I wanted to be better than them. And then from the first time I played, in 7th grade, I played on the West Stockton Bear Cubs Pee Wee Pop Warner team. Now get this, 29 kids on the team, 3 of us signed NFL contracts in 1980.
Wow.
And our safety, if you're a baseball fan, our safety was Von Hayes.
Oh, man, I know Von Hayes. Played for the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah, Major League Baseball All-Star. We had 4 professional athletes on this little 29-man squad of pipsqueak 11 or 12-year-olds. And I was skinny and scrawny and slow. In Little League, they nicknamed me the Cat. Sarcastically, I was so slow running around the bases. The coaches go, "Man, Visger, you're quick as a cat."
Yeah.
And in Pee Wee Pop Warner, I was known. They nicknamed me Clang because I was so knock-kneed when I ran. The coaches said they could hear my knees clanging from clear across the field. But I was just a tough kid. I hated to get beat. I started both ways at tight end or defensive end. And I started lifting weights crazy back then. I loved the game. First 5 games we ever played, we scored 251 points to our opponent, 0. Whoa. And I'm like, oh yeah. And here's a game that I could play that if something bad happened, if I made a mistake, I could take it out on somebody and not get thrown out of the game. You got patted on the back. And I wasn't a violent but I mean, I learned to use my negativity to fuel me.
Mm-hmm.
The guy blocked me, man. Next play, I'm bringing it.
Yeah.
And so my third year Pop Warner, ninth grade, was the beginning of my diagnosed concussions. I knocked myself totally unconscious in a stupid bull in the ring drill and was hospitalized. It was a drill that no one should even run, and it was a gladiator's drill for the coach's amusement. I missed 2 games. I came back, was still hitting the weights. After 3 years of lifting, I get into Amos Alonso Stagg High, and Amos Alonso Stagg was the winningest coach in the history of football till Bear Bryant broke his record.
Oh, wow.
Stagg was on the very first All-American team in 1899 with the likes of Pop Warner himself. These guys created the game, and Stagg finished his 60-something year coaching career at the College of the Pacific in Stockton. He coached till he was 93.
What class was that high school? You know?
What year did I graduate?
No, what class? There's class 1A, 3A.
We were 3A, either 3 or 4. We had I think 1,200 students.
Okay.
It was a bigger school.
Yeah.
And so my sophomore year didn't even play varsity. And then I just kept pounding the weights. I was 158 my sophomore year. And I'm doing 12, 14, 16 raw eggs a day, milkshakes every night with bananas and peanut butter. And between the end of my sophomore season and the first game my junior year, I put on 55 pounds. And I come back my junior year. Now I'm 6'3", 215. And I was playing defensive tackle. I was all city, all league, and then kept hammering the weights. I come back my senior year, another 20 pounds. I'm 235. Ended up, I was all everything, all Northern Cal, all American, top 100 all American team. And I had good grades too. I was 3.0 because my goal was I'm going to college on a football scholarship. We didn't have any money. So, and so I hammered the classroom. I hammered the weights. And then, so after my senior year, I had, scholarship offers all over the country. And from the time I was a little kid, my 2 dreams, I wanted to be an oceanographer, and I wanted to be the greatest NFL player that ever lived.
How did oceanographer get into the mix?
Man, Jacques Cousteau was my guy. When I was growing up, I was just fascinated. I mean, I that stuff, I loved it. Plus, I'm a fanatical outdoorsman. I love hunting and fishing. And so I get recruited, all over. I take a recruiting trip to Hawaii. They had a great school of oceanography. I took one to University of Washington, both of these with my best friend, Jack Cosgrove, we played Pee Wee on through high school, and he signed with the Seahawks in the 8th round in 80. So when I signed, but my number one priority, wherever I went to school, I wanted to be able to hunt and fish. Then I wanted a great football program. Then I wanted a good biology program.
You could have went to LSU,
I could have. Well, I would have loved it down there.
That'd have been awesome.
I would, but then I also wanted cold weather. Growing up in Stockton,
you ain't getting cold weather down there.
I wanted snow, man.
Okay.
So when I signed at Colorado, of course, then I'm going to be an oceanographer. First words out of my own man's mouth were, "What the hell kind of school oceanography?"
There's no ocean in Colorado.
So I go, I major in fisheries biology. So I was a fisheries biology major. And when I went to Colorado, my goals were I wanted to make the travel squad my freshman year. I wanted to start my sophomore year. I wanted to be all Big 8. They were in the Big 8 conference back then. I wanted with Oklahoma and Nebraska. I said I wanted to be all Big 8 my junior year. I wanted to be all American my senior year. So I made the travel squad. First game my freshman year. We had 120, 100 something guys on the team, and only 50 would travel. So we played Texas Tech the first game of the season. I made the squad, and I was pumped, And then I earned my starting position that spring ball, my freshman year. So I started my sophomore year, and ended up. I got dinged a little bit. I had a bad ankle. I missed 2 or 3 games and came back, played a game. So I was kind of dinged up my sophomore years. Started my junior year. And then same thing. I played, I had some dings, had a bad knee. I never missed any games, but I missed some time with it, And then my senior year, I came back, and then by then I'm like, 250, biggest I'd ever been.
Wow.
And I ended up, I was third in tackles that year, on the team. I made honorable mention, all Big Eight. And then my next goal was, I wanted to get drafted in the NFL. I wanted to be the greatest player ever lived. And back then they had 12 rounds of draft over 2 days. And I knew I wasn't going to be a first round pick the scouts are on campus every day. As soon as the season's over with, there'd be 2 or 3 scouts. Now we had 2 first rounders that year. My 79 season, we had 7 or 8 guys drafted in the first 6 rounds. And this was the Chuck Fairbanks fiasco. Do you remember all
I remember
that?
stories about it. I couldn't give you details, but yes.
Okay. He bailed on the Patriots, big lawsuit to come to Colorado. Anyway, it was a mess.
Yeah, did he come to Colorado and he was horrible.
Oh, he came in and we had, so when they canned Coach Mallory, who I love playing for Mallory, Mallory never had a losing season. And they canned him my junior. We were 6-5. And he said, I wish I had one more season. This was the best recruiting class I had. Fairbanks comes in. Now, Fairbanks is under contract with the Patriots. They're going to the playoffs. He's trying to come to us. Big lawsuit. He hires this who's who of head coaches as his coaching staff. They give him everything under the sun. Get this. We had a year-round training table at Colorado, just the football team 8 separate. Very few schools have a year-round table. All these big cattle ranchers and boosters would donate all this. We ate all you could eat steak or prime rib 3 times a week.
That might be why you got up to 150 or 250.
I mean, we ate like kings.
Yeah.
Fairbanks comes in. He's having lobsters flown in after home games. All you could eat steak and lobster.
That wouldn't hurt my feelings. I would be all right with that.
I mean, it was crazy. The money they were throwing up the sky. My senior year, we had 8 guys drafted in the first 6 rounds. We had 2 first rounders. Stan Brock, who played 16 years in the NFL, went on to coach at Army, and Mark Haynes, all-pro defensive back. We had Fairbanks comes in and says, I don't know what Mallory was talking about. He says, there's no talent on this team. This was in the paper, quote unquote. We're nothing but a bunch of junk on the field.
Wow.
I'm like, we win 3 games my senior year. He wins 1 game the next year, 1 game the year after that. 3 years, he wins 5 games and destroys the program, and he's gone.
Unbelievable.
Oh,
I knew it was not good. I didn't know it was that bad.
No, it was horrible.
That's really bad. I could have done better, and I've never coached football.
We had it got so we're playing like preseason games. And usually, some of these games, they're 45-0, 63-0. We played Drake at home. Okay, to this day, I still don't even know what state Drake is from. Do you?
I thought he was a rapper. I don't know. I thought he just got dissed at the Super Bowl, is what I understand.
Seriously,
I don't know.
Right, immediate. So we're playing Drake at home, and these games are usually 63-0, right? It's the score is 9-7. We're up 9-7 with about 2 minutes left in the game. We're hanging on by our fingernails. Bill Rowe, one of our linebackers, who went on to be a 3rd-round pick with the Cowboys, and then sadly committed suicide years later, and I'm sure he had CTE. He had 6 kids he left.
Oh, man.
And Rowe wasn't the first of my teammates that committed suicide. I could go on that. So here it is, 9-7, 2 minutes left against Drake. It's like 4th and 21. Okay, run a prevent, give him 18 yards. We get the ball back, run it out, we win the game. He calls for like the 11th time that game. The only play I remember in my entire history, Sinbad Sikkim. It was an 11-man all-out blitz. That's something you run every other game, maybe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The 7th or 8th time we ran at that game. Sinbad, he calls it. I look at him. I said, guess what they're signaling in? I said, bull. He goes, and I look at everyone in the huddle. I said, we better put him on his butt.
Yeah.
So quarterback gets up. We bring everyone to the line of scrimmage. There's no defensive backs. They have trips out to one side. No one's even out there. Of course, he has his little audible by now.
Mm-hmm.
They flip it out to the sidelines, down the side. They score.
There's nobody to get. Yeah.
Wow. 14 to 9 or whatever it was. Now that was like the third or fourth preseason game that we had lost, and we go back to the as a senior, you could live off campus. Prior to that, you had to live in a football dorm. We're sitting in my apartment afterwards with two of my teammates, and I go, these guys are throwing games. Mm. They don't want us to win. And I had no idea why. But I'm like, how do we lose to Drake? So it just became where guys just started playing for themselves. Mm. I'm just going to try to get some stats. You know what I mean? You can never win like that.
No. If you're not a team cohesive, you're destined for doom, for sure.
Oh, no. And I had played on teams in Pee Wee, Pop Warner High School that we would kill for each other.
Yeah.
My high school team, we nicknamed ourselves the family. We had 17 kids on the team from one parent or zero parent households. We worked harder than at any level I ever worked. We started off with 2 weeks of 3-a-days, 3 full padded practices a day, year-round weight training. It was amazing. And my greatest memories are playing on that team. We lost a bowl game my junior, only game we ever lost in high school.
Oh, wow.
We were inducted into the Hall of Fame, Athletic Hall of Fame in Stockton. I mean, we were ranked nationally my senior year. We were 11-0. We were ranked third in California behind the co-national champs, Cordova High and I always forget the other one, LA. And 2 of their kids played at Colorado with me. It'll come to me. Anyway, so, I was like, I grew up with this. There's no I in the word team. I mean, you leave it on the field for your brothers out there, and all of a sudden, guys are going, screw this. You know what? They aren't even trying. And we went 3-8 that year, with 8 guys going in the first 6 rounds.
That tells you all you need to know.
We won 3 games, and we won the last 2 games of the season. And I used to laugh about it. I go, "Hey, man, we had a 2-game winning season." It was horrible, But So then I'm like, okay, NFL. So I'm still hammering weights. By now, I get up to about 259, and am I still on track here? I think I got.
Well, I'm letting you roll because I want to bring you up to where you go to the NFL, but then I've got a lot of stuff to unpack because you've given me a lot of nuggets.
Yeah. So I get drafted by the Jets in the 6th round, and my goal was I wanted to go on the first day. And they had
How old were you?
I was 21.
21.
Yeah, I was never redshirted, and I was young for my age. I was 17 when I went to Colorado. And I'd never been redshirted, so I was 21 years old. Drafted by the Jets, 6th round. Day after the draft, they fly you out for a 2-day mini camp. Now, I knew the guys I was competing against. I knew Joe Klecko, who is now in the NFL Hall of Fame, and the first player to ever make All-Pro at 3 different positions.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Oh, he was a stud. And get this, Klecko never played college. He out of high school, he was playing semi-pro ball under the fictitious name of Joe Polish. When the Temple coach's son sees him playing, and they give him a scholarship to Temple, and then he gets drafted by the Jets. So anyway, we had Joe Klecko. I knew Marty Lyons was their 1st-round pick the year before, defensive end. Mm-hmm. They had Abdul Salam. I'd never heard of Mark Gastineau, so he comes in with the rookies because he wasn't a starter. I call my older brother, we call him Gomez. He played through college and ended up coaching college level for like 23 years. So I called Gomez. I said, Gomez, they've got this backup. He came into camp. He's 6'5". He's 283. He runs a 4.40. We had 3 guys on the team that could beat him. 2 were gold medal sprinters.
Oh, my gosh.
Wesley Walker and Lamb Jones, and 1 other guy could beat him in the 40. And he was like 9-10% body fat. As a defensive tackle, I'm like, what? This is a backup? But he was a nutcase. He was a good. So anyway, I'm busting my tail. And then before So at the end of preseason, at the end of mini camp, the defensive line coach takes me off the side, since we like what we've been watching. Now I'm 259, right? I'm benching like 430, greatest shape of my life. He goes, if you can put on 20 to 25 pounds of solid muscle before camp starts, there's a place for you here, son. Now, my goal was I wanted to buy my folks a home. I wanted to buy my dad a boat. I signed my $15,000 signing bonus that I cleared 10,000. I took 7,000 and bought a car from my sister-in-law. My brother just started a general contracting business. They had 3 small kids. I wanted to help him get his business going. I was going to be the savior of the family, right?
Yeah.
So I was going to do anything. So in the mini camp, the coach goes, yeah, if you can put this weight on. I'm looking at him like, I said, it took me 4 years of religious lifting in college to put on 20 pounds of muscle. He gives me a little wink, pats me on the back. You know what to do. So I go back to Colorado. We had a guy that had been, seriously injured and wasn't playing anymore, but got into forging prescriptions, supplying. So I get on the juice, and I'm not proud of this, but I'm very open to let kids know this isn't the way to do it.
Yeah.
So I get on the juice, and I come back to camp 6 weeks later. I'm 275, benching 460. Didn't lose any speed. I wasn't fast, but I ran a 4.9, which, was decent, back then. And then I started the third preseason game against the Steelers. They were on their one for the thumb, and they're on their 4th Super Bowl championship.
That was during the Terry Bradshaw days, right?
Oh, yeah. I lined up over my idol, Mike Webster, who totally changed my life years later when I heard about how he died, with CTE. So, and then I got cut at the end of preseason, or the third game. And I'm like, man, that was never even in my mind. And I'm thinking, so then I end up, long story, the Calgary Stampeders had also signed me. I went up there for a couple of weeks and practiced a week, and then fished for a couple of weeks, and then came home. And then as soon as I'm home, the Niners call me, and they want me in for a tryout. And then the Broncos want me. Now, I had no idea.
And you're 21 or 22 at this time?
I'm 21.
Okay, still 21.
Yep.
Okay.
So I had no idea. I always thought after they made the final cut day, that was the team.
Yeah.
It's open season year round. There are 0 guaranteed contracts. Maybe now there's a few with the bazillions of dollars these guys are making. But back then, if you signed a 10-year, $100 million contract and you played one game, they owed you 1/16 of that first year's salary, and the rest was all paper.
Oh, wow.
I mean, people don't realize that. So my rookie year at the Niners, we made 28 roster changes after the final cut day. Every week, you'd come in the locker room. So that's average 1.5 guys. Let's say 2 guys. Every week you come in the locker room, you go, man, Steve and Paul are gone, and then there's 2 new guys. And then the next week, it was just hung. The hatchet was over your neck constantly. Have a bad game, adios. There's thousands of guys looking for your job.
Cal Ripken Jr., you may have heard of him.
Oh, yeah.
Baseball player. Once said the second hardest thing to do is make it to the pros. The hardest thing to do is stay there once you get there.
Yeah.
And I think that's true across the board. George, I want to pause you right there. So you're getting into the San Francisco 49ers camp and stuff, and you're 21. So I want to walk this back a little bit. You gave us a great background of how you kind of went through the different evolution seasons of growth in football, and how it's obvious when people hear you talk, the passion for the sport is clear. It's very clear. And the love for the guys, and I'm picking up that your teammates and how much that meant to you, obviously. Am I wrong on any of that?
Oh, I'm telling you, man, you'll bring tears to my eyes. I have a couple stories I can tell you from just this year alone.
I am looking forward to hearing that. And so walking this back to when you were a kid, was the 7th grade, first question I have is, was the 7th grade the first time you ever played football?
I played flag, but the first time we ever had full contact football. Okay. Yeah.
And in the lineup of, you said you're 5 of 6 kids. The other 4 that were in front of you, they're older than you. Were they all brothers?
No. So it went boy, girl, all the way down the line. So
wow.
Oldest brother, Bob, 10 years older, played college ball at Sacramento State, and then coached there for 20-something years. Then my oldest sister, Marcia, was 2 years younger than him. Then my other older brother, Mel, was 4 years younger than Mark. He's 4 years older than me. Then my older sister, Sharon, is 2 years older than me. Then my little sister, Jackie, who I abused. I tortured as a brother would. And forgive me, Jackie, I love you to death.
Who's the only one you had younger than you? I asked that question because so often, especially whenever you talk about large families like that, there's such a dynamic of the family competition and along with the family support that help a person grow. And you being at the back end of the age groups, if you will, how much did your older brothers and particularly your mom, and I'm not excluding dad on this, but
No.
moms that have that kind of a large family, they've got to be tough as nails. How much do you think those things played into your life and how you became a warrior, if you will?
Let me tell you, the greatest people I've ever known in my life are my parents. Mm-hmm. My dad was a stud. He was just a man of character, integrity. It was all about hard work. You're a Visger. Be proud of your name. Make sure people you make sure people know who you are. He goes, I don't care what you're doing. You go balls out and give everything you have. Yes. And that goes back to the old saying, leave it on the field.
Leave it on the field.
I live by that. And my mom was an absolute, she was my hero. Okay, so get this. So my mom's full-blooded Lebanese. My Sittu's grandma in Lebanese, was born in the old country, married at 11 to my grandfather, who was 32. There were a lot of Lebanese in Stockton. They came over, had a little grocery store in downtown Skid Row, Stockton, with an apartment above it. Sittu raised 11 kids. My mom was one of 11. And we were raised with a good, solid Christian Catholic background. Mm-hmm. Church was big. My mom, who was just tough as nails, raising all of us and my dad, she's my hero, man. And she passed at 94, holding my hand and my little sister's hand. And I'm playing this. If you ever see the movie, The Mission with Robert De Niro, and the soundtrack is by Ennio Morricone. It's this great orchestra music. We've been with her all day, and she was talking, and she got real quiet. I put on this one song. It's called On Earth as It Is in Heaven. I listen to it all the time when I'm working out. No words, just beautiful orchestra music. And I put it on, put it on her pillow. Jackie and I are talking. Within 30 seconds, Jackie says, is her breathing changing? And we're holding her hand. We're going, Mom, go home. Man, you kick butt. Your kids love you. Your grandkids, your great grandkids. I said, you go home. And she passed holding her hand.
Wow.
It was the most beautiful gift she could have given us. It was, she was just the most giving, loving, but tough as nails.
Yeah.
We were petrified of Big Rita. I called her Big Rita. The 6'6", 260 old man. You know what? Nothing compared if you got in trouble with Rita.
You get to raise 6 kids, and apparently one of 11. You better be tough.
Oh, Rita, till the day she died, carried a wooden spoon in her purse. Honest to gosh, till the day she died. And when I'm in my 50s, we're living 2 hours away up in Grass Valley and raising a family, and I'd tease my kids, and if I tease them too much, they'd say, we're going to tell Grandma Rita on you. And I'd go, tell that little munchkin. I said, I'm not afraid of her. They'd run to the phone, call her long distance. Grandma Rita, Dad called you a munchkin. And I could hear on the phone, put him on the phone. And then she'd always clench her teeth, right? And I'd get on the phone. I go, Big Rita, what's up? And she'd start ripping into me. And it was kind of a little thing we had going, I know she loved that the kids thought about calling her,
Sure.
Well, she was tough as nails, man. And just, we had the greatest talks her last 10, 15 years. I'd go down and sit in her she was in a retirement home for a while. I'd sit in her room and we would talk, and I'd say, God, and I called her Big Rita because she called me Georgie till I was like 11, and I hated it. And so every time she would say Georgie, I'd say, what, Rita? And then, it was kind of like, I'm the only one that called her Rita till the day she died. It was a term of endearment.
Sure.
I would sit there with her for years, and we would talk about stuff. I'd say, Rita, the stuff that you pounded in our heads when we were little that we were embarrassed about because the other kids they weren't preached that. I go, you never wavered. And here it is, 40, 50 years later. I'm telling my kids the same thing because it is spot on. She was She was amazing. And she never, she used to just laugh when we'd tell her how amazing she was. Oh, you kids, she would never take a compliment.
Yeah, well, humility. Georgia, I'm so glad. So one thing I want to touch on with that is that's a beautiful story about your mom's passing, because sometimes they want to hold on as long as they can. You gave her permission, you and your sister.
Oh,
That is a
yep.
beautiful story, by the
Yep.
way. And part of what I like to do with my guest is I want to understand their background, and I want my guest and viewers to understand what built the person that is before them today. Because the one thing you and I would both agree on, I'm sure, is that we don't get to where we are without having to go through some difficult times or roads, or have people in our life that are influences. And so clearly you want to put those building blocks together. You just showed by a great example of how your family was both competitive but supportive. They were
Oh,
tough but yet loving. All of
yep.
that is called balance, and that's what you have to have. And so that warrior spirit, your dad telling you, look, make your name matter and never give less than your best. As a professor, as a firefighter, that
Yep.
is the mantra. You have to go all out. You have to give everything you've got every second of the day. Whenever the moment is there, you've got to be able to try to rise to the occasion. And that's what you were doing. Now, blending that to sports, I think it's easy to see them with that competitive nature and that desire to be at the best. And you have older brothers that you're trying to beat, which, by the way, don't dismiss that. Whenever you have competition right in the family, that is great to have.
And let me interject real quick, because
Yeah.
I want people to understand. My two brothers, we were so tight, even though it was, we would look for any excuse. Hey, let's grab breakfast tomorrow at 5:30, and we would hunt and fish and go out and eat. And when my brother Mel, he's the middle one, he was killed in a car wreck, February 26, 2010. And when he passed, my older brother Gomez, we call him Gomez. He looks like Gomez on the Addams Family, right? And to this day, every single time we text, email, talk, or whatever, we tell each other, I love you. And we end our text with LMS. It means last man standing. And we know what that means. When one of us goes, we know what the other guy once said at his funeral.
Mm.
And I mean, my older brother, Bob, is my closest friend in the world.
Yeah.
And the three of us brothers were as tight as you could be. So even though there was serious competition, there was nothing but respect. Those guys were my heroes.
Well, and I wasn't meaning competition in a bad way, because as a coach, and I'm a real coach, right? So I want there to be that competitive nature, but the competitive nature is also backed up by support. And so, you're not just pushing someone forward, you're also propping them up when they need it. And I had no doubt that was the support system that you were describing to us. And so whenever you get into sports, you start playing actual football. You mentioned in ninth grade was the first time that you had a documented or a represented moment of a concussion. And I want to pause on that and just talk a little bit for a second about what was that like coming out of that? And did you have immediate symptoms following that first concussion that was obvious?
Well, I mean, I was not totally unconscious. And then the story I heard, we're in a stupid bouldering drill, all the players in the circle, we're running into each other from 20 yards. So I get hit, I'm down. They said I was face down for just a moment. Coach came over to help me up. I got up. They said I pushed him off. I took one step and then flipped over backwards. They grabbed me again. I'm pushing them away. I said, I'm fine. I take two steps sideways. I'm down. They called it. There were parents watching practice. They said, hey, can someone take him to the hospital? So they take me to the hospital. I have no memory of any of this stuff. My first recollection was later on that night. I'm sitting at the house, and all I can remember was that everyone was pissed at me. Right. And a day or two later, my memory's coming back. I just remember, well, they said when I came home that night from the hospital, I don't know, they've got Jackie Gleason on. We had this little teeny tiny home and little front room, and everyone's watching our black and white. We're watching some show, and they said every 90 seconds I'd go, hey, what are we watching? And all I can remember people going, like, Jackie Gleason, yelling, okay. A few minutes, hey, what are we watching? Everyone was pissed at me because they said I kept asking the same questions over and over.
Yeah.
So
what year was this? What year was that? Do you remember?
That would have been 72.
Okay.
So I missed 2 games was all. And when I came back, I can remember distinctly first day, and I was a captain. I went both ways, I can remember the coach come up to me and go, listen, you can't be afraid to hit anymore. You need to stick your head back in there, not be afraid. And the word afraid was like the worst thing you could say to the Visger boys,
Yeah, pouring fuel on fire.
Oh yeah, I'm like, no, hell no, I'm not going to be afraid,
Mm-hmm.
And so I hit even harder to show the coaches that I wasn't, gun
Timid
shy.
now. Yeah.
And then, I just had a drive that I thought was normal. And then as I got older and I coached and I taught high school for 2.5 years, I hated it. I always wanted to be the first in class. I wanted to finish, be the first one to hand up to answer questions. I always wanted to be the best. A single play in practice, I hated to get beat on.
Mm.
Guys would, they're tired, they slough off. I don't know. I just had this drive. God gave me some drive that just don't accept defeat,
Mm-hmm.
And I hated it.
Well, it is a part of the DNA. I do believe that people have certain types of drive that is born within them. It's not something you can necessarily choose, but you do choose to embrace it or to shy away from it.
Right.
I will use me as the example. So a person would look at me and they would think I'm kind of a older, less in shape person now than I was 15, 20 years ago, but I still run marathons. I'm still very competitive in anything I do. If you put me into a competition, I'm not going into the competition to just show up. I'm going to try to beat you every time. And I coach competitive softball to this day. And, for me, there has to be the balance, of understanding your talent level, but then how do you get your talent level better and do that in a way that encourages folks, not make them feel like they're tearing them down. So there's always this balance, right? And so back in the 70s and 80s and even 90s, there was not a lot known about injuries to the brain, injuries to the head. I mean, there was stuff, but it wasn't out there like it is today by no means.
Not like today.
Not like
but
today.
I will stop you there.
Yeah.
Because that's always been the NFL's. Well, we didn't know, and I call BS. If I was a boxer in 1980 and got knocked unconscious, I wouldn't have been able to box for a couple of months. They gave me smelling salts. They acted like, well, we didn't know. I'm calling BS on that.
Oh, you're talking about when you got to the NFL.
There wasn't as much education, nowhere near as it is now. And I agree with you.
Yeah, as a firefighter paramedic, I'm just relating this in the sense of what I saw. So being in the field early on, we were given certain protocols and how to handle types of head injuries and what to suspect, et cetera. And I made a lot of patients of what you just said. They would ask a question in the back of the ambulance, and then they would repeat that same question. Then they repeat that same question. And it was clear that they had some kind of a concussion. And that would maybe be the only symptom they would show was confusion and lack of memory in the moment. Now, I agree with you. They knew a lot more, and they definitely pushed players. There's no question about that, which also led to more research, which led to some of the safety measures that are in there. Now, bringing all that around, after that first injury in ninth grade, when or can you think of when did you feel that next time that something took place and it was an obvious moment for you?
Well, so at Colorado, then when I went to Colorado, so we're playing Oregon. My junior and senior year, we played them. And my best friend, Jack Cosgrove, who went on to play with the Seahawks, his younger brother, Chris Cosgrove, was 2 years younger than us. Chris was a stud ball player out of Stagg High School. So he's playing in Oregon as a linebacker. Now, the Cosgrove family was like my second family. I mean, I lived there every other night. Jack was, we just grew up. So we're playing Oregon at Colorado. It's either my junior or my senior. I think it was my junior. We played them 2 years. So Cosgrove's folks came out for the game, which was a big deal. They were like family. I have my own. I carried the ball once in Pee Wee Pop Warner, and I had an interception against Oregon. So only 2 times in 12 years of football I carried the ball. Well, I get an interception that game. I have a couple of sacks. I'm player of the week. Don't remember the game. Probably 20 years later, maybe at least, I run into Chris Cosgrove. We're talking. He goes, yeah, I'll never forget when we were playing you guys. And his parents had come out for the game, right? He goes, you got dinged, I don't know, second, third, quarter. He said, I was face down on the field. They came out, helped me off the field. I came back in the next series. I don't even remember playing that game. And I was player of the week. Wow. Now, the thing I tell people is when you don't remember things, you don't know you don't remember it. It's not like I go, I don't remember last week. It's just gone.
It's blacked out.
So unless somebody brings something up, like unless my wife asks me, hey, did you go to the gym 2 days ago? And I'll go, I have no idea. I
Mhm.
mean, it's just gone. Unless I'll get my notebooks out and go, oh yeah, I went to the gym and then I went to,
Yeah.
Costco, and then I can tell you what I did. But so there are games I'm sure I played that I don't even know I don't remember.
So
You know,
that's part of what the story is here, is that these moments were happening and either the coaches were recognizing or they weren't recognizing, but you didn't have enough cognitive ability to pick up on this just happened or that just happened, because as they say, you got your bell rung and
yeah,
it took a while for that fog to get out of your head, and by the time that happens you don't have memory of the moment. And so for a person that's having these repetitive injuries over and over throughout their career. By the way, you were on a team that only lost one game in high school. I know
yep.
that you won a bowl game when you were with Colorado.
We actually we played the old Woody Hayes, those Ohio State Buckeyes, but we lost that Orange Bowl.
You lost the Orange Bowl. I
Yeah.
thought y'all won. That's my bad. All right, give me a D minus on that one. So,
I just don't
but
want to be. I don't want to be bragging when someone will go, they didn't win that game. So
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I just remember reading over. So you guys did go to the bowl game though,
yeah,
and so you were on very competitive, really good teams,
yeah.
and all the way up and through college before you get drafted into the NFL. Is there any way to even have a guess how many times you may have had even a mild concussion at that point?
Now, once then I started a brain injury consulting business in 2010 as I got more and more and more vocal and reading stories. In 2012, when I read about how Mike Webster died and Omala was doing all these studies, that GQ article came out. And I want to say, and since that day, Dr. Bennett Omala, I got together with him as soon as I read that article. He's been on my advisory panel. He's a close friend of mine. We have presented together at conferences, but I think your question was how many did I have?
How many could you guess up to the NFL before you got to the NFL?
Oh, so now what they call a concussion is if you hit hard enough to see stars, that's your brain concussing against your skull. I had thousands.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
if you weren't doing that every week, you weren't practicing hard, you weren't playing hard. I mean, hundreds and hundreds for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
there wasn't a day in practice I didn't hit hard enough to get at least a hit or two where I saw stars,
Yeah.
usually, I mean,
So going into the NFL, I mean, at this point, clearly you have some deficits, I would imagine, some things that have happened to you. And when you get drafted, you go into San Francisco. Pick us up from there, because that's where you had led up to at that point. Now you've been through high school, you've been through college, you've had some injuries. Now you're getting into San Francisco 49ers camp.
So the Niners signed me. I think it was like the 5th game of the season. That's where I got off track, where I didn't realize they cut guys all the time. So they had just traded Baltimore 2 weeks earlier for a defensive tackle. He played 2 weeks. They cut him. They bring me in. So the way the NFL works is you play on Sundays. Mondays, you go and get treatment. They're light days. You got meetings. You break a sweat, and you're out of there. Tuesdays are your days off. That's the day they bring guys in to work them out. So Wednesdays, you come to practice, all of a sudden, hey, there's 2 or 3 guys are gone and new guys in there. So they bring me in, bring me out Tuesday workout, and I told them I'm flying to Denver. The Broncos want to work me out too. And they said, well, don't sign anything until we talk to you. So I had a good feeling there, So I fly to Denver, work out with the Broncos. And then now I went to school in Boulder, which was only like 45 minutes from there. And I still had a lot of my buddies there. So as a 21-year-old, I go, hey, I got a free plane ticket out here. So I changed my flight for a few days later. I go, I'll hang out in Boulder, work out with the Broncos, rent a car, drive to Boulder. My agent was in Boulder, Jack Mills. And so luckily I stop in to see him before I start goofing around with the boys. He goes, hey, just worked out a contract. You're a 49er, head back to the airport. You're flying in. So I fly back to Frisco, get a ride over. They put me up in a hotel, and then, but we were playing Dallas, and I think it was a short week. I think it was a Saturday game, so I only had 1 day of practice of pads. Then we're in shorts and to Dallas. They give me a skinny little playbook, just learn the basics. So the very first play, and I'm playing defensive tackle. Very first play I'm in, early in the first quarter, down on the goal line. I'm in the guard center gap. I shoot the gap, and I get drilled in the temple on a Dallas tight end trap. And as you well know, on a trap, they won't block the defensive tackle. They want you to get upfield, and they'll bring in. They usually bring in. They'll pull offside guard or something. Well, the Cowboys would split their tight end out wide, and they bring him in motion. Now, he's already got a full head of steam going. I come upfield. Doug Cosby, who now is a very close friend of mine over the years, he drills me in the temple. Rewinds my memory. I don't remember that game, nor even playing the Rams the following week.
Wow.
And then later on in the game, after Cosby gave me the game film probably 8 years ago. I mean, like 30, 40 years after the game, we became very good friends. And so later on in the game, third or fourth quarter, I get drilled in the other temple by Jay Saldi, their other tight end, same play. So I don't remember that game, don't remember the Rams. About a week and a half later, when my memory's coming back, the Niners team doctor and trainers are laughingly telling me I went through like 15 or 20 smelling salts during the Dallas game. They said, you'd come off sideways and stumbling, would give you a couple, clear your head, go back in. It was a joke. Mm-hmm. Well, you got your bell rung. You know, an injury is the most important organ in your body, and they make light of it.
Yeah.
And that's the way it was.
Yeah, I'm sure that, you know, over the years, I could name a bunch of folks that I've seen. We don't have to name everybody. Obviously, you know about Junior Seau. There's all these other players that had all these things come up. And at the time, it was not being at least broadcast. I'm sure they knew what was causing it, but it wasn't being broadcast that's what it was. So as you started to have more and more injuries like this, did you notice personality changes or different ways of thinking from yourself other than the memory loss, obviously?
You know what? I've always been a very, very easygoing guy. And Big Rita would even tell people, as she talked to the docs later on, because I started having serious anger issues. Mainly my anger issues were coming from decades of fighting the freaking travelers to get my bills paid, you know, and just all this stuff I'm going through. And it was a constant legal battle. I had to beat the travelers over the years in 5 work comp hearings, 8 separate appeals, and 3 times it took me clear to the California Court of Appeals to keep me from getting into doctor-prescribed treatments. It has been and sometimes I've had grand mal seizures for 45 years, right? Sometimes I go to get my prescription, same place, 7, 8 years, also to go to get it. Now they're charging me at Rite Aid. I go, no, that's work comp. And they'd look, they go, oh, well, your claims adjuster called. They said they're no longer paying for it anymore. So I used to, in the old days, I'd call, leave, message for day after day after day. You're going to hear from my attorney. Well, finally, I learned how to play the game years ago. I go and get my prescription, my anti-seizure meds. Oh, they're not paying. I go, really? I'd step out of line. Excuse me. I'd speed dial my claims adjuster back in Dallas, Texas, who I've never even met. I'd leave them voicemail. Yeah. Hey, Doug, this is George Visger. I go, I know you know who I am, the old brain damaged 49er out in California. I'm standing here in line to get my anti-seizure meds, and they're telling me now that the travelers and the travelers have now taken over my medical management. So please call Rite Aid and myself and let them know who will be economically liable or financially liable when I have a crash on the freeway going home today because of a seizure and I kill somebody. So thank you very much. Please let me know who is now responsible for my medical management. In the old days, I'd get home sometimes a few hours later, sometimes by the next day, Rite Aid, hey, the travelers just approved your prescription. Oh, really? But see, most people would go, they're not paying anymore. I've got to pay now.
That's what they're hoping for.
It's a business model. You know how many millions of dollars a year they can save by scaring people, screwing them out of just their little meds. The travelers grossed $27.3 billion the year I beat them. And the NFL grossed $19 billion. They're monsters. The travelers sent 7 of their top corporate attorneys and heads to my little mediation hearing when I tried to settle in 2019.
Okay, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. George Visger's story is absolutely amazing. We've got this into 2 parts. There's just too much to fit into one episode, so I'm going to ask you guys, please come back next week. You don't want to miss the exciting conclusion. This is an incredible story, so please come back next week. And as you guys know, I'm going to ask you right now, please go to my website, motivatewithcoachcamp.com, subscribe to my YouTube, and until next time, Coach Camp out.
I love love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better me. Better believe in your mind, cause it's everything. You can mold, shape,